On today's show, the NBA opening night is set, but what do each of these teams need to answer before opening night, including the Lakers? What's the difference between win now Luka and win now LeBron? We'll tell you on today's Locked On NBA Game Night.
When that final buzzer rings, you know it's time for Locked On NBA Game Night. All the post-game reactions to every game across the league, every single night, with insights only the hosts at Locked On can provide. It's the true NBA fans' one stop for all the action. Every game, every night. It's Locked On NBA Game Night. Tipping off now.
And welcome, you're Locked On NBA Game Night. My name is Nick Angstadt, host of Locked On Mavericks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for being in every day and making Locked On NBA your first listen today. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code Locked On NBA for $20 off your first purchase. And joining me on a Sunday night from Locked On Knicks and Locked On NBA Game Night, what'd you see in the NBA tonight, Gavin Schall?
No games, but we do have European basketball. Your boy Luka back in action, looking good, looking svelte. So that's exciting.
Warming up, throwing some trick shots in, doing some fun stuff. They talked about that on Game Night the other night, so you can go check out that. Also, Locked On Lakers. I have just urged them to do Locked On Slovenia. I may have even sent them a contraband Locked On Slovenia logo that I have made from Locked On Mavs that our marketing department did not like. So we'll see if they use. We'll see if
Is
they
that
use
like
it.
a potential lawsuit from the Slovenian government?
I don't know. I just don't think that they liked it because it's
Gotcha.
not our branding.
Sure.
But I liked it. Today we're going to talk about the opening night slate of games. It's Warriors at Lakers and it's Rockets at Thunder. Hilarious matchup, Rockets at Thunder. Well, we're going to talk about each of those and talk about what questions each of those teams need to answer before opening night, because there's still some things that need to happen and some things that need to be settled before we get into the season. We'll also play Count It Up, where we count out the most interesting, fun things in the NBA, including Steph Curry. One of his most memorable moments in his career happened a year ago today. And we'll talk about that. And Patrick Beverley made a discovery this week. We'll talk about that. Let's start here. let's
I don't want to talk about that, but yeah, sorry, go ahead.
let's start here, Gavin Schall. Warriors at Lakers is one of the opening night games, and it's an interesting matchup between two teams. The Warriors, who have these older stars, Steph Curry, Jimmy Butler, Draymond Green, younger stars, and Jonathan Kuminga, who I'm sure we'll talk about a little bit later. And then you have this Lakers team who also kind of have that similar thing where they have younger stars, stars, quote unquote. Austin Reeves, obviously, Luka and LeBron are in this kind of whose timeline are we in? Are they both win now? Are their win nows different? And the reason why my question for this team is, what's the difference between LeBron's win now and Luka's win now? I really personally don't think this is a real question. But do you know who really thinks this is a question? Is LeBron James, because he put out that statement talking about how he wants to do the best for his career and the best for him right now and all that. And they put out that statement, and a lot of people had a lot of things to say about it. Said, man, this is not the passive aggressive LeBron comment that we're used to seeing, where he's just trying to, all right, make sure you make some moves so that we get better so we don't waste a year of my career. It didn't seem like that statement. It seemed like something more, and like nothing has happened from it, right? We had Luka get in shape, and he recruited Marcus Smart and maybe DeAndre Ayton. And now we have this ESPN report that says that Austin Reeves, I think he will get $30 million plus, one executive told ESPN, echoing multiple front office sources who were asked about the next deal Reeves could command, which would cement Reeves' role as the long-term running mate next to Luka Doncic in LA's backcourt. So you have this looking forward kind of like timeline or situation. And then you have LeBron making this statement. And to me, it does seem like there's some kind of like rift there. And does it need to be answered? Do you agree with this, that this needs to be answered before opening night?
I mean, this is the oldest story in sports, right? The aging superstar who doesn't realize how old they are. The only difference is like the level of delusion for LeBron is somewhat lower than superstars of years past, because the guy, like when he's on the court, legitimately still top 10 to 15 player.
Sixth in MVP last year.
Right. That's not normal.
Crazy.
So his delusion is somewhat justified, because generally, if you're sixth in MVP, you have the right to say, hey, I need you to make some moves. I need you to make some win now moves. I'm 40 years old. I'm at the end of my career. And yet the downside of getting Luka Doncic is, for the first time in his life, he's playing with someone better than him on the same team. Like maybe you could argue Dwayne Wade for a stretch in 2011, right? But that is essentially it. Like he's always been the number one. It has never really been particularly close. And now with Luka, there's someone who has greater equity than him because Luka is the future and LeBron is only the present for this team. And the other compounding factor is even if the Lakers wanted to acquiesce to LeBron and said, you know what, we're going all in on this year, which just would not make a lot of sense for them. They don't have a lot to trade, Nick, right? Like they still only trade that 2031 first round pick. They can trade a couple of pick swaps. They don't really have the contracts to swing a big moves. To your point, Austin Reeves, this year at least, is still only making $13 or $14 million a year. You'd have to like combine a couple of middling salaries together. And I don't know, you could throw some names out there if you want. I don't really know who the guy they would go and get is. So I think the most likely way this goes is they play out this year and they're pretty good. And maybe best case scenario for them, conference finals, I would think. LeBron retires or maybe goes to another team, and then it's Luka's team because they have a totally clean cap slate. They could trade potentially up to 3 picks this summer. So a lot changes, but this year I don't really see the move, even if they were to choose LeBron, which wouldn't make any sense.
It's like I feel like they're going to choose both of them in a way, and LeBron picked up his player option too, which is like him also choosing the Lakers at the same time too.
No one's making him do that. He's a billionaire, right? Like he could have passed up the money if he'd chosen to.
Right. And so he could have done that. But to me, it is still this weird, like, okay, are we worried about whose team it is? Are we worried about who's in control of the situation? And I just don't want to have an upset LeBron going into the season because he's still super important to this team. If he is not on this team and for whatever reason, let's say something crazy happens the end of this summer and he makes a move. We've seen late moves happen. We saw Donovan Mitchell get traded like in September. We saw Karl-Anthony Towns get traded the day before training camp last year.
I remember.
Do you remember that day specifically? Like we've had these crazy things happen in the past. And so if that does happen, then the Lakers are kind of stuck with not a great looking team around Luka. I mean, it is kind of a reset there. What do you think about the team that they have right now, though? Ayton, LeBron, Reeves, Smart, Luka, bring in Jake LaRavia off the bench. You've got Rui Hachimura, Maxi Kleba threw down a windmill dunk in a warm-up today. They looked pretty spry for his age. Obviously, they bring back Jackson Hayes, Vando, Bronny's still on the team. Like it's not screaming championship team to me, but like you said, it's screaming okay team.
No, I think okay might even be understating. Like I think they have the potential to be very good. Remember, even largely without Anthony Davis, they had the 22-23 game stretch where they were the best defense in basketball last year. I'm fascinated to see how real that is because it didn't necessarily match the personnel, and it was a credit to JJ Redick that they were pulling that off. Honestly, it was a major credit to LeBron James, who looked the best defensively he has the last couple of seasons for that stretch. I'm curious about the impact of Marcus Smart. Some of the underlying stats show like the defensive drop off for him hasn't been as significant as the offensive one has. If he can turn that up, maybe he ends up being the fifth starter over Rui Hachimura. You have a pretty interesting lineup, and maybe there's another level Austin Reeves can still get to. I do think DeAndre Ayton, whatever you want to say about the guy, and as someone who's rooted for the Phoenix Suns in my life, I have a lot of negative things at times to say about DeAndre Ayton, but he is inarguably just a massive, massive upgrade over what they had at center previously. And I'm curious to see like him playing with Luka Doncic, who, like, you know this better than I do, Nick. There is no player who's going to make your center look better offensively in the NBA than Luka Doncic. Like, that is a major boost for Ayton. I could see him having a very efficient season. I think this is a really good basketball team. They're just going to be limited somewhat by their depth and ultimately in the playoffs by LeBron's ability, I think, to put 3 or 4 rounds together at the highest level. I just can't imagine at 41 by the time the playoffs come around that he's still able to do that. I think this is a very good team, though.
The other player that makes a center look better than anybody is whoever's playing center for the Warriors, because the Warriors just get destroyed by centers all the time. Yeah. That's the team that the Lakers are playing on opening night. The question they have to answer is, how does the Jonathan Kuminga saga resolve? We've got an idea. We'll talk about that and more coming up. Locked on NBA Game Night continues. Today's episode of Locked on NBA Game Night is brought to you by Game Time. We've all been there. You log on early. You're waiting forever for concert tickets. I did this. I tried to get Eras tickets for Taylor Swift last year, and I just sat and waited and waited and waited and waited, and then there was that error, and I didn't get them. And then all the other markets were way too expensive, and I didn't get perks like you could get at Game Time. So Game Time makes getting concert tickets faster and easier than ever. Prices actually drop as it gets closer to showtime. You can save up to 60% off with their killer last-minute deals. If you're tired of endless scrolling, you can try to find the best deal with Game Time Zone Deals. It picks the best seats for you in the best section. So you can also get panoramic seat views. With Game Time, you can also get the Game Time guarantee that has your back with cancellation protection and more. Take the guesswork out of buying concert tickets and show tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. That's code LOCKEDONNBA, LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Terms apply. Again, create that account and redeem the code. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Thanks for hanging out with us on Locked On NBA Game Night. Being part of this show, listening every single day. Listen to Locked On NBA Daily with Hayes, Matt, and Doug. Great stuff every single day. Also, you can go listen to Locked On Lakers with the Kamenetsky brothers. Awesome stuff from them. And the other show that we'll talk about here is Locked On Warriors. We'll talk about what the Warriors need to do. They're playing the Lakers on opening night. Gavin, what's the question they need to answer before opening night?
The clear question to me is, how does the Jonathan Kuminga saga resolve? And once it does, do they have sufficient depth around their three stars in Draymond Green, Steph Curry, and Jimmy Butler? We've all been on pins and needles about this. Certainly our friends in the Bay Area have been on pins and needles. The Warriors tried to get Kuminga to take a 2-year, $45 million contract offer with a team option in the second year. He ultimately declined that. We've seen the Kings have a lot of interest. We've seen the Suns have a lot of interest. Those offers, which surprises me, because if I was Golden State, I think I would just want out at this point. But apparently that is not the view of their front office. Certainly not the view of owner Joe Lacob, who has been fond of Kuminga for years and years and years now. And in turn, we have a standstill. He has until October 1st to accept that $8 million qualifying offer for next season. So we don't know when this is going to end, Nick.
I mean, it ends by opening night. You hope, yeah. Right? Like they've got to figure something. Like that's why they need. That's why they need to answer this question before opening night, which is why we're asking it today. I think it's a very apt question. Jonathan Kuminga, you said that you would just move on. Would you just let him go? Like you just free him?
Well, I would probably take the trade from the Kings and get Malik Monk, who's a fantastic player. Obviously, the Warriors don't necessarily want to add another small guard. I guess the counter argument to this is, and we could go deeper on some of these numbers, but they've pretty consistently been better when he's on the floor. Like these stats are from a great Twitter account, RNBA stuff. Over the last 2 years, Nick, with Curry and Green on the floor and Kuminga plus 11.1 in 900 minutes, with Kuminga off and Curry and Green on plus 3.5. Like that is a pretty substantial difference. Steph lineups have consistently been better when Jonathan Kuminga is on the floor. Like there's a world where they make this all work. It's just that they've so thoroughly telegraphed, and Steve Kerr specifically has so thoroughly telegraphed that he doesn't particularly value the way Jonathan Kuminga approaches and plays basketball. And to me, that's why, despite those numbers, I'm like, all right, just let him go. And or I mean, take a trade from the Kings, bring back Dylan Brooks from the Suns, bring back Malik Monk from the Kings, and get an asset for the guy.
The thing is, it's the assets, though. They've hemorrhaged so many assets in this two timelines era, like the post KD, even like post 2022 championship. Like they got a championship out of it, which is wild. But like even before that, James Wiseman, the Moody Kuminga picks, like just go down the list. It just feels like they had these opportunities and they blew a lot of them. And you mentioned Kuminga, and Steve Kerr not really valuing him. Kuminga posted on Instagram the other day, "I'll bet on myself all day." Well, here's the thing. I don't know that the Warriors are betting on you enough for you to make that decision. His minutes are down. He was down 24 minutes a game last year, 26 minutes the year before that. And he had 4 DNP CDs in the playoffs and 3 games playing 7 to 16 minutes in the playoffs too. Was just not playing at all, like in some of these games. And so I don't really get it. I think I'm with you that he's just going to take the qualifying offer. They'll play out this season. It's kind of like the LeBron thing, which is kind of what the CBA has sort of forced these teams and these players. It's like, all right, just take the 1-year deal, play it out, and then see what happens next year, next offseason after that. But the Warriors, they also kind of need him. Like they don't have a ton of talent, which is why I think the Warriors are still like clinging on and holding on to him.
And the other holdup here, right, is like Al Horford. We've heard from literally months at this point that he's expected to be a Warrior. Seems inevitable that he will be a Warrior. Mark Stein reported DeAnthony Melton will also eventually be a Warrior. But this is a Golden State team that just desperately needs to insulate those 3 stars. Like they were exceptional after trading for Jimmy Butler, right? I think 22-3 over a 25-game stretch. They were playing as well as anyone in the NBA, and yet in the playoffs, Jimmy Butler, like a little shaken up in the first round. That ends up going 7. Steph Curry misses the entire series against the Minnesota Timberwolves. Obviously, those guys are on the court. It ultimately doesn't matter. You're trying to get enough depth to buy those guys enough minutes that hopefully you can get them healthy through as many rounds as possible. You would think, again, young legs like Jonathan Kuminga's would be valued, but at the very least, if he's not going to be on this team, make sure you can bring in Al Horford, make sure you can bring in D'Anthony Melton. That seems like a sure thing at this point, but that is my single biggest concern here, and why I don't consider them legitimate championship contenders is I don't think they're going to be able to build out the depth in the way they need to, and to your point, that is a failure of the 2 timelines plan.
Young spry legs of Al Horford.
There you go.
Spell these guys.
You know, relatively, he's played limited minutes, man. He might be fresh.
And D'Anthony Melton, who has played 44 games in the last
coming off an ACL
last 2 seasons. Yeah. Tough to those are the guys insulating your older stars. The other matchup on opening night is Rockets at Thunder, which to me is just like a hilarious situation because Kevin Durant will have to watch the Thunder raise the championship banner that he probably should have won there if he had stayed and done all that, which is just going to be an interesting. I've seen a lot of people say that they need to have the picture-in-picture or Kevin Durant's like reaction, like they just have a single shot like stuck on Kevin Durant that's showing it while the banner is being raised and all that. But I want to focus on the Rockets first. My question for them that they need to answer before opening night and maybe just throughout the season is how big of a leap can Amen Thompson take?
Yeah,
second year, he was already first team all defense, 5th in defensive player of the year. But he was just not getting guarded on the perimeter often, and sometimes in the playoffs too in certain possessions. 14 points a game, 8 rebounds, about 4 assists. But he's shooting, he shot 27% from 3, 68% from the free throw line. Like he's got to take that leap forward because they're losing 37 shots a game basically if you just combine Jalen Green, Dylan Brooks, Cam Whitmore. And I think a lot of those are going to go to Amen Thompson. A lot of like the ball handling minutes are going to go to him because I don't think they're just going to put the ball in KD and Fred VanVleet's hands and maybe Reed Shepherd and be like, all right, that's going to be all of our offense. Like, I don't think you can get away with that. Maybe in, Jabari and Şengün a little bit here and there too. I think that Amen Thompson's got to take a big leap forward for this team to like really fulfill the things that they want to do.
I think there is, to your point, there's still a real deficit of shot creation for this team, despite getting Kevin Durant. And to be clear, Jalen Green to Kevin Durant is like one of the biggest single season upgrades, like as a quote unquote number one option. I can imagine. I think I did the stat on an earlier Locked On NBA, but I think it was out of 52 players who took at least 15 shots per game last year. Kevin Durant was 4th in effective field goal percentage. Jalen Green was 47th. So that is massive. And yet I felt the Rock. I mean, it's telling. And we had that quote from Ime Udoka after Anthony Edwards torched them back on February 6th, where he said, man, it's nice to have a special player that can get you buckets at the end of the game. They have that in Kevin Durant. Absolutely. And yet I still don't think that is enough because his offense was just so far behind last year. And Kevin Durant at his age, we even saw it 3 years ago when the Nets played the Celtics in the playoffs. Like, I think there are limitations to him as a number one option on a team with legitimate championship aspirations, even though this will be far and away the best defense he's played on since those Warriors teams. Amen Thompson, like, there were real flashes in the Warriors series, right? That he was making a little bit of a jump. Last 4 games in that series, 20 points, 8 rebounds, 2.5 assists per game, 3.5 stocks per game, 55, 33, 81 shooting splits. But to your point, when someone is a 28% three-point shooter, only taking 1.5 threes per game, you hear so often, because he really checks pretty much every other box, I think, intangibles, athleticism, size, ball skills. You hear so often, man, if he can just learn how to shoot, he's going to be a top 5 player in the league. I feel like it's underestimated how often those guys never end up learning how to shoot. And even more so, I think it's except for Kawhi. I think and even Anthony Edwards to some extent, but it's so hard to do in one offseason, right? I think the best case scenario is he's 33% on low volume. I was trying to think of an example of a star wing who never really develops that shot. And Jimmy Butler was really the one name I came back to. And that's probably the long-term template for Amen, but I don't know if he's there yet. And it's why the Kevin Durant deal, even though they didn't give up a whole lot, is tricky because I don't know if the timelines line up.
Like DeRozan is kind of another name, but he had the mid-range shot that was just lethal, but he never really went out to the three-point line. And then Ben Simmons is like the classic. He was all NBA, all defense, all that. And then for, I think mental reasons, maybe he didn't pan out as much. But we also can't pretend like Amen Thompson hasn't known that he has a hard time shooting and has been through like the G League Ignite and been like a top prospect for a long time. And so you think that they'd be working on it. It's not like they just discovered him and like, oh, we should get you with a real shot doctor and like work with this. So I don't know how big of a leap he can take. I'm very high on him and I think he's going to be great, but I think they need him to really step up because they're losing. They lost a lot of offense. They're getting it with Kevin Durant for sure, but somebody's gonna have to replace those ball handling minutes. For the Thunder, what's your big question for them that they need to answer before opening night?
So I thought about it, and I really don't have any basketball questions about the Oklahoma City Thunder. The closest thing I could come to is maybe the health of Chet Holmgren, right? He's only played in about half or less than half of the 3 seasons worth of regular season games he could. Yet he's never missed a playoff game. Like I was talking to Rylan Stiles about it on our Saturday Locked on NBA recently. He doesn't think it's a major concern. He thinks it was 2 fluke injuries. I choose to trust him. So what I go to instead is the big picture, the dynasty question, and I guess specifically for opening night, how Oklahoma City approaches this season. And I think back, Nick, to a decade ago, right, where we had the Golden State Warriors coming off an NBA championship, maybe like a year or 2 or a couple earlier than anyone expected them to be ready to go and win a championship. And then the next season, instead of being satisfied with that, they come out and it's just like the greatest FU run, to quote our guy Bill Simmons, in NBA history. Right? They win 72 games. They start off 27-0. And I want to see that from Oklahoma City, right? I want to see them come out and just wreak havoc and saying last year was only a taste. We were young. That was when you should have beat us. We could only shoot 33% from 3 in the playoffs, and you still couldn't beat us. We were going to run rampant over this league. Tim Bontemps had an ESPN article about just the implausibility of a modern dynasty in the current NBA salary landscape. Do you buy that dynasties are still feasible in the NBA and Oklahoma City's on track to be one?
I don't want to skim by that you said wreck havoc instead of wreak havoc.
Sorry. Thank you.
If you wreck the havoc, does that fix it? Does that fix the?
Yeah. It actually
creates order.
It means everyone gets to win. Everyone takes turn.
Creates order. Yeah. I think this team will. They're young. They're young enough. They signed the guys this summer. They signed Chet. They signed Jalen Williams. They will have to make some like ancillary replacements throughout the next couple of years, but not even this year. They're bringing back everybody for the most part. And they're bringing in Topic and they're bringing in Sorber that they just drafted. AJ Mitchell was a rookie that gets a little bit older. Everybody else gets a little bit older. My question, would have been something along the lines of how much development can we get from some of these young guys? Like, can Chet Holmgren is 23 years old. Like he's gonna get better for sure. Just had a finals run under his belt. It depends on also what you think about dynasty. If they win 2 of the next 3, like, so they win 2 out of 3. Is that a dynasty enough? Yes, they have to win 3 out of the next 5.
Is that 3 out of 5? I think that is a minimum. That is a mini dynasty, I would say.
Okay. Well, so I think that's possible for this team because I think they're young enough, and I think that they have the assets to replace some of those guys. They just got to nail some of those, and some of the other guys have to get a little bit better that they're going to be able to keep. So yeah, that's what I think. I think it is. I think it is possible if that's the parameters for a dynasty.
Yeah, million draft picks going forward, endless flexibility. I think the picks, even more so than the fact that they got their entire core locked in, are the key because I mean, in the article they reference the Spurs, right? And they say Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili, Tim Duncan. Those were the central pieces in all 4 of the 5 Spurs championships at least. And they were able to just keep rolling through role players. You even go back to the Bulls in the 90s, right? It was Jordan, Pippen, and Phil, and they kept exchanging role players. And the Thunder, even with like limited financial resources, can continue to do that because those picks, and whether they like attach them to guys to get off of someone if they ever make a mistake, or they just use them and they just continue to find like low cost replacement talent. Like AJ Mitchell looked fantastic in summer league. Brooke Barnhizer looked fantastic in summer league. They still are going to have another year or 2 with Dort, with Caruso, with Aaron Wiggins, and the cap should start to go up, right? Artificially compressed a little bit because of COVID. It's expected to rise. The aprons will rise. That'll give them a little bit of breathing room. Chet and Jalen both left some money on the table. Chet in particular, I think they're really well set up to win a whole bunch. I think the biggest concern for them is just how loaded the rest of the West is, right? Obviously, Denver is going to continue to be amazing. They were a real challenge. Victor Wembanyama is always coming. We just talked about the Rockets, the Timberwolves, 2 straight Western Conference Finals with an extremely young team. The Cavs, Knicks waiting on the other side, Luka Doncic and the Lakers. I just think Oklahoma City's better set up than any of them.
It's so annoying. It's very annoying that how well set up this team
Rylan
is.
just has a smug look, man. Every time we do Locked on NBA,
constantly.
It just opens up and he's just like, he knows. He knows. He's in a good spot.
He knows. And we knows that coming up is Count It Up, where we count on the most interesting, fun things in sports, including Steph Curry's most memorable moment of his career. We'll talk about that and more coming up.
Big chicken, baby. I think a lot. I'm very smart.
Take that for that.
Count it up. Count it up. Count it up. Count it up. Count it up.
Yesterday on Locked On NBA Game Night, we talked about the Christmas Day slate. It was leaked, and notable omissions include the Boston Celtics, first time since 2015, got Giannis, top 4 player, not playing on Christmas Day is interesting. The Pacers, who just made the finals, but for obvious reasons. Also the Clippers, maybe another one, probably like the best West team that didn't get included. And really only 2 East teams were included on Christmas Day. If you had to pick, Gavin, what's the biggest omission on Christmas Day, or did they nail it?
I think they. I hate to say it as an Eastern Conference guy, but I think they nailed it. I would have liked to have seen Knicks Pistons or Knicks Magic. I think could have been a lot of fun, like reward 2 young teams in the Eastern Conference, a team like Orlando that even in this landscape of the West is so incredibly loaded, and they could have taken their time with an extremely young core. Like they went for this offseason. They went out, they got Desmond Bane. They're never in the spotlight. The Pistons are a team that seemingly never gets the respect they deserve. They were one of the best teams in basketball over the last 50 games of the regular season. They're the 2, maybe throw the Atlanta Hawks in there as well, but they're the 2 I'm the most inclined to make a case for. But man, I don't really see how you knock off any of the teams that are playing.
I think they nailed it across the board. I'm not putting the Celtics on there, right? Even though they're a legacy team, like you don't want the casual NBA fan to turn on a game and be like, "Oh my gosh, this is the Celtics." Like I don't think you want that next year.
Who is Nehemiah Skata? Who is this guy? I don't know.
The Bucks.
I'm watching football, Nick.
Luka Garza may be starting at center for them by the time they're like, "Oh, Luka starts for the Celtics." Oh wait, this can't be the Luka I've heard about. Giannis is the one maybe like omission, but I'm not putting his team on there either. Like, and so I think they nailed it. They've got the classic stars. They've got Curry. They've got LeBron on there. They've got the today's stars of Shea, Luka, Anthony Edwards, and I guess even Anthony Edwards is a younger star. And then they also have the up and comings. They got Victor Wembanyama and they have Cooper Flagg all playing on Christmas Day. Like I think they nailed each slate of the types of stars they need to play on that day. And so I'm with you. I think they got the right teams. Did they get the right matchups though? Should it have been Mavs Lakers? Watch Locked On Mavs for that one today. A year ago on Sunday, August 10th, Steph Curry had one of the most memorable moments of his career, hitting 4 straight threes down the stretch to beat France in the gold medal game. My question for you: did the single most iconic moment of Steph Curry's career happen not in a Warriors jersey? Meaning it was this moment.
I always think of the shot against Oklahoma City, the Mike Breen double bang. That's where my head goes initially. I would say yes. And my reasoning for that is on a floor with Kevin Durant and LeBron James, Steph Curry was the guy you couldn't take your eyes off of. And to be clear, they all had their moments, right? Like KD had his moments, LeBron had his moments, Joel Embiid, he had his moments, right? He outplayed Nikola Jokic down the stretch of that semifinal. If not, they lose that game. So tip of the cap to Joel Embiid. But it goes to show with Steph, and I think this is like the best historical argument for him, maybe being a top 10 guy all time, that on a court with like arguably the greatest player of all time and a fellow top 15 greatest player of all time in Kevin Durant, that he can shine and he can create magic in a way that those 2 guys just can't, like are not capable of.
Yeah.
And in a way, Nick, let me know if you disagree with this. You watch Luka, like you have another good candidate for this. Like I've never seen a player create magic on a basketball court like Steph Curry, and like the fadeaway 3 over 2 with those guys wide open. Like that just lives in my head. Like the cojones to take that shot, the skill to make it. I've never seen anything like it. And that's him at 37 doing that.
I think it was such a big stage. And I also think the unsung thing about that moment is the night, which has become his celebration, which he didn't start doing until like kind of recently. Like, I don't even know if he did it in 2022. I'm trying to think back. I think he did it against the Mavericks.
Yeah.
And so I think he may have been doing it then, but I don't think he was doing it with the KD Warriors and like even before that. And so you have that's become like his thing that everybody knows night is Steph's thing. And that happened in that moment. And it was just such an absurd thing that I do think this is his most iconic moment. And it happened not in a Warriors jersey, which is just absolutely wild, including he's got 4 championships. Like that's the Olympics can mean that and can be this huge thing. Cause it's like, if an all-star game went well, like if an all-star game was somewhat competitive. Patrick Beverley on his podcast this week was commenting on how Karl Malone was a top 20 player and then learned in real time about Karl Malone's off-court issues. You can read up on the off-court issues. They're awful. My question is just simply, do you believe that Patrick Beverley didn't know?
Oh, what a question. If he didn't, he's a really good actor. It seemed genuine. He got, we were joking, this might've been about something else, but he got like the YouTube thumbnail reaction. There was a lot of like he was befuddled.
Completely dumbfounded.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a great look if he did know ahead of time, but it seemed genuine. And it was a wild 2 minutes of podcasting.
he like called for a timeout and like had to wait for it. It was very interesting to me to hear an NBA player not know of a story of that magnitude that has been talked about so much whenever Karl Malone gets brought up online, at least from what I've seen in my whole time covering the NBA professionally. Anytime I see Karl Malone get brought up, somebody brings up this story, like somebody brings up the off the court story and brings up that and like disqualifies him because of it. And so to hear somebody, especially who was in an NBA circle like that, to not know about it was maybe just showed how like in different worlds we are. And maybe everyone is at this point, because we all have our own silos. We all have our own media. We all follow our own different things. And that was just very fascinating to me. I don't believe that he didn't know. I think he did know. And I think he was playing. Last one, barring a trade, the 2025-26 season, this one coming up, will mark the most years LeBron James has gone without switching teams. It would be his 8th straight season with the Lakers. My question is, when he finally hangs it up, which team will you think of first? Longest tenure at one time was with the Lakers, 8 years, and it'll be his most recent, most likely. The Cavs, he had a 7-year stint to start his career, then a 4-year stint, so 11 total. He started his career there, obviously 2016. It's the most years he's played with one team. The Heat was only 4 years, but it was arguably his peak as a player and maybe his most visible because of the decision and not one, not two. But which team will you think of first when you think of LeBron James when he hangs it up?
It's a great question. Easy answer for me. The Cleveland Cavaliers. I think that 2016 championship means more than the other three combined. The block, the Cleveland, this is for you. Like Akron kid, Akron born, even when on other teams, he's always worn that on his sleeve. Like the emotion of that. And for someone who at times, to your point on Patrick Beverley, who's been accused of being contrived and corny, like that was the rawest, most authentic, and just the clearest basketball highlight of his career, pulling them back from 3-1 against the greatest regular season of all time. Like that is like, I think you could question not the validity, but given the talent level, the success of LeBron's career, if he did not have that, it was stamped right there. Everything else has been gravy since.
As the Mavericks guy, I will say I will always remember him as a Heat first.
Yeah.
I will always remember JJ Barea guarding him in the 2011 finals. That's what I will always remember first.
That is the opposite of what I described. That is the low point, unquestionably.
Yeah, probably. But that's what I will think of first. And I think many Mavericks fans would agree with me on that one. Let us know in the comment section on YouTube or wherever, which LeBron team will you think of first when you think of LeBron? Anything else we talked about today? What questions do these winner teams need to answer the most? Go check out Locked On Lakers, Warriors, Locked On Rockets, Locked On Thunder. Great stuff all the time over there. Locked On Knicks, Locked On Mavs with me and Gavin. Great stuff all the time. Thanks so much for listening to Locked On NBA Game Night.